All right, y'all, here we go. Coffee and chat live here on a Saturday. Rev Bruce trying to do this once again. Wrapping up this Black History Month segment. Kind of rough on this Black History Month segment. We talked about some statistics that were impacting Black children and youth. Statistics that were impacting Black children and youth in particular. And now we are going forward with a discussion on this piece right here. Why it takes a village to raise a child in America. Why it takes a village to raise a child in America. And I want to say that some of this is going to provide some soulful solutions. I'll say some soulful solutions. Soulful in looking back at what we've already done as a community and some other solutions that have been ideas, concepts, things buzzing around within the community that we've talked about, but we haven't quite fulfilled. And next week, I want to get into some specifics, particularly with gun violence and a few other issues that we could hit up, that we could turn around within 2 to 3 months and turn around some things within communities on singular issues, right? Just focusing and concentrating on singular issues and addressing them with broad-based plans and making it happen. We could do it. We could do it. Let me put this out here real quick. Lost Jesse Jackson this week. I wanted to really look at Black History Month differently, but it just seems to always catch us where we lose someone of significance during this period of time. We're supposed to be reflecting, and it causes us to have some different types of retrospective. And I want to say that part of what we can see with the loss of Jesse Jackson is, are we repairing and restoring that village mindset as a community? Or are we going to drift further away from it and continue to not grow stronger together going forward? What are we going to do? I say we should go forward, growing stronger together. And these are some elements that I think will help us with that. And I want to get into this right now. Boom. Number one, empowerment. So long ago, before the New Deal, anyone that's been listening to this anytime, especially around Black History time, you know, I've studied the New Deal. I've looked at it, all that good stuff, from a regular history perspective, from an African-American history perspective, from an economic perspective, all the way down to socio-political perspective. Great packages, New Deal. We're still benefiting off of them as we speak. And what makes it sad is that that's what was going on within the co-op churches of the late 1800s, particularly following a major depression in the late 1800s. and then what was going on in the Black community as a means of self-sufficient survival. Can we put it that way? Self-sufficient survival. That you might be a sharecropper, but you had another resource within the community. You had the church, you had the lodge, you had the community center, which was the church. God help us. We're not there. We're not there anymore. We're not in that place. And so that empowerment to launch out and do certain things came about not from government programs, but from community resources. And I think that if we're honest about it, all programs aren't progress. Hear me on this. All programs aren't progress. And when I say that, what I'm saying is welfare was designed as a temporary relief program. But when welfare has loopholes, that means you can continue to receive it indefinitely. Then the program becomes one where you become dependent upon it and not motivated or incentivized to create any or discover any solutions beyond that. And when you're there and you're only looking at solutions that are oriented towards what you can get through welfare, then you're stuck. By golly, you're stuck. And so that doesn't help. The empowerment we need is empowerment to get up and get some things going, get some things started, start some business initiatives, start launching projects. I mentioned it before, Wilberforce. That was a school, college set up by African American community, a church. That they set it up. They didn't need a lot to do it other than the collective mindset to do it and the money gathered collectively to do it. That's what they needed to do. So that's how they did that. So when we look at the village, there's a level of empowerment as a village that we need to have to take ownership of what's going on, what's going down in the village, and let's look at how to repair and restore that to strengthen it and empower it even more so to where people respect it, right? One thing about the early church operates pretty much like a co-op in all other figures. But when we look at it, that amount of empowerment that is there to where others can see you and be impressed with you, but still, I may not want to join them, but I definitely got respect for them, right? That's part of what we mean when we start talking about empowerment as a community. When we start talking about empowerment as a community, we're not just talking about the ability to gather people together, mobilize, and get out into the streets and march and protest and hold signs. That's a minimal level of quote unquote demonstration of power. But actual empowerment is to get people engaged in a way to where they feel like they can take charge and take lead. We need to take charge and take lead of our own community issues and not wait until someone else rallies and puts together a new government program that we might be able to sign up for. Scratch that. Let's build our own. Enlightenment. This is going to sound different coming from a Christian preacher, but when I say enlightenment right now, we need an awareness as a community to get this stuff together. Open your eyes. Take an assessment of what's really going on around you. Look at it. And then look back at a time when we remained resourceful and resilient in the midst of severe oppression. Do you know we were not We were not the main folks who were being put into labor camps and work projects legally until later on, after the women and children of white society were finally um, given some value. Then the further disregard for the children, youth, and even adult lives, particularly female lives of African Americans and other brown people and people of color became devalued. What am I talking about? I'm not talking about education, because remember, public education is still a new concept. I'm talking about employment. I'm talking about working in mines, working in fields, working in dangerous conditions, right? If you've ever read The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, you know what I'm talking about. Child labor laws came into effect because we had children doing dangerous tasks in the labor force. That's why that came into effect. And so let's not play games with this and act like we've been this missional society for all this time. When we needed to, the African American community did not have a high number of children in foster care and orphanages, right? Family members took people in, neighbors took people in, the mothers of the church took people in, right? We don't do that anymore. And I wonder why we don't do that anymore, because there's a government program that exists that should take care of that. There's a government agency that exists that takes care of that. Yeah, those are the ones that take the children out of the home and place them with other people who most probably don't match the child's racial or ethnic identity. And then they're separated from their own quote unquote village, their own community. And now here's someone who is a sojourner in someone else's home and lost when they see their own. It's like being a Moses or something, right? A Hebrew raised in an Egyptian palace just didn't fit. And so when we talk about this enlightenment, look back to when we didn't depend on government services, when we didn't depend on government programs. Yeah, I know. We've had some quote unquote success as Democrats. Yeah, I know. And I know there's a group of us that say, man, we need to go back to when we were Republicans. Limited success with that as well. The radical Republicans got us where? Civil War? 13th Amendment? Break it down. If you really are that enlightened, break down how much benefit Black America has received from a two-party system since they've been politically active. Break it down and outline progress. And if the biggest thing you can say of progress is that we actually were able to put an African American into the position of president, then we've failed a whole lot of other African Americans, because that's a major achievement. But man, that took how many years? And then what? So I just need us to look at this beyond face value and look at this in a legitimate sense of when we talk about correcting social issues, correcting social ills, that enlightenment, that ability to look and see, observe, become aware, take in, and recognize that we need to be both resourceful and resilient, especially in the midst of severe oppression. If you can't go back to Jim Crow, if you don't have any memory that takes you back to Jim Crow, sit at the feet of an elder. Sit at the feet of an elder and listen. Buy an elder a cup of coffee. Buy a war veteran a cup of coffee. Buy someone from down south a cup of coffee, a plate of dinner or lunch, and sit and listen to them break it down. What does it mean? What does it mean to see and experience oppression in a racist society? And then you'll realize that part of what we live and endure with is the subtle racism that is hidden under masks and other things, as opposed to just overt, outright racism of lynchings and other harassment. So we need that empowerment. We need that enlightenment. And what else we need to go along with this is two other things, and then I'll wrap this up neatly. We need exposure. We need to go back to when we exposed children and youth to the arts, when we exposed children and youth to sciences, when we exposed children and youth to other things. Why is it that we have so many Black engineering and computer programmers, Black engineering majors, but then the involvement within the community doesn't always match up, right? I get it, you're working, but then how did you get involved in engineering? How did you get exposed to engineering? How did you get exposed to math, right? And I love what on the STEM camps and STEAM camps that many of the engineering programs throughout the U.S. are able to host, but they're only able to host so many spots for so many children. And what happens when we just do a program for Blacks getting into engineering and getting exposed to that? What happens if we just hold a open house at a Qualcomm, at a chip maker, right? What happens if we hold an open house for that and just invite Black children and their family and send a bus into the hood and bring them out to see what it is and what employment opportunities there are for parents as well? Are there current employment opportunities for parents in the chip maker business within the area? Somebody say something. Somebody talk on that. But we need exposure. Music, the arts, science, technology. Because otherwise, if we just lean in on this archaic educational model that is being provided to children, they'll be great at customer service in a fight for positions as the hostess or host at your local restaurant. But as far as involvement with technology and science and anything of that nature requiring a new level of skill, such as coding, they won't be there because that mastery is not required in order to graduate. Now, we haven't raised the standard within the educational K through 12 system for that to be something that students have to demonstrate in order to graduate. We need to change that as the village and create a different experience so that they can have a taste of what is offered to them in abundance across the globe. How many young people know where Dubai is located, more or less what it took to build a city like Dubai. Come on, let's get there. And then expectations. Let me lay this one out clearly. You can never expect Black excellence without expectations. We've got to raise some expectations. We've got to change some things that have been said and look at what are we expecting out of our youth and children. We've got to change some things that have been acceptable in the past and look at, okay, among our own, have we raised the level of our expectations? Have we raised the level of our expectations? And have we come to the point where we're not going to settle for meager or mediocre, measurements of success across the board? Have we come to that level? Have we come to that point where we're saying, no, we're not going to accept that as our answer? And so if we increase the exposure, raise the expectations, develop some empowerment, increase our enlightenment, I think there are some ways that we can go back to more progress and not just programs. I think that can happen. I think that can happen easily. And I think that can happen, almost in no time. And I'll give a process for how to do that next week. We can do it. We can do it 12:30 again next week. Next month we'll go back to our earlier time. But please believe me, this takes place only based upon us taking the initiative to do it. This takes place only based upon us taking the initiative to take what we're dealing with and deal with it head on and be okay with understanding what makes everything not okay right now. Because if we're working on it, we can get there. And if we're working on it and we're working on getting there, then we can handle it a little differently. Hey, if we start to empower people, start to enlighten them, continue to expose people, and raise our level of expectations, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. We're going to get there together. We're going to get there stronger than we are today. And we're going to build up bigger and better and tighter bonds to hold us together than we have right now. That's the truth. God be with you. God bless you. I hope this helps. Hope you understand. Join us again next week at 12:30. I hope all this comes into play for you. God bless.